Welcome back. More Formula still to come, but first let's get up to Fia GT Championship. The sports cars have moved on from Donington to the A1 ring in Austria. Once again, your commentator is Simon Taylor.
Well, the Mercedes-Benz CLKs have carried all before them this season, and in the last round at Donington, they clinched the Manufacturers' Championship with 3 rounds still to go. Mercedes racing boss Norbert Haug says no more team orders. His drivers can now fight it out for the driver's title. So it's significant that Ricardo Zonta has out-qualified team leader Bernd Schneider and got pole position by a quarter of a second. The Silver Arrows on the front row then, and the Panos has qualified third, with Frank Lagorce ahead of the Bouchou Maylander Mercedes. Best Porsche is the Zakspeed GTI of Michael Bartel's 6th, ahead of McNish and Muller on the 4th row, and Jeff Lees in the Vacher McLaren is on row 5 with the other Zakspeed Porsche. Fastest GT2s were the Hertgen Porsche and Coroy's Marcos, which set the same time precisely. Well, they're coming round to complete their rolling lap on this beautiful forest-clad circuit. The lights go green, the 2 Mercedes at the front move, and it's Klaus Ludwig with the red mirrors on the inside, Schneider and the yellow mirrors on the outside, and Ludwig it is who's nosing ahead, and one of the blue Mercedes coming up the inside. That was Thiemann, but amazingly everybody gets through. One of the Porsches getting pushed very wide by the Panos, that was Jörg Muller's car, but somehow they've all got through that first uphill right-hander. It's Mercedes 1, 2, 3 and 4, the 2 silver cars at the front. Ludwig leads Schneider, Bouchou is third, Thiemann is fourth, then it's the Panos in 5th place with Christophe Tinzo starting in that car. The best Porsche is only in 6th place, that's Jörg Muller with Dalmas in the car he will share with McNish. But look at Bouchou coming through. Bouchou goes into 2nd place. That's not in the script. And Schneider fights back. There's a collision between those 2 cars. Bouchou goes wide. Bouchou back on the circuit, having lost lots of places. But I think that was a real surprise for Bernd Schneider, who didn't expect one of the blue Person Mercedes, one of the privately entered V12 cars, to come attacking him in the Works V8 on the first lap. Bouchou then rejoining in 7th place. There's Schneider still with this 2nd place, but all of that has helped Ludwig. We're seeing it again, and Schneider fighting back gets inside Bouchou and just elbows him aside. And Bouchou goes wide on the gravel. We're riding now with Yannick Dalmas in the McNish car, following his teammate Jörg Muller in that GT1 Porsche just ahead as they go along the top straight, the straight that runs at the top of the hill, which ends in that tight downhill 2nd gear right-hander where we just saw that incident between Bouchou and Schneider. And there is Bouchou making up time. Bouchou elbowing past Yannick Dalmas, getting up therefore into 6th place now. And the 2 Mercedes, the 2 silver cars running at the front. There's the Panos in 4th place now. Tinzo is up to 4th. So it's Ludwig, Schneider, Thiemann in 3rd place in the blue V12 car, then Tinzo in the Panos, then Jörg Muller with Bouchou up to 6th place, running just ahead of Yannick Dalmas. We're sitting with Dalmas in the cockpit of the GT1 Porsche, over the brow, approaching now that double downhill right-hander, with Dalmas taking a tight apex for the first one, then crossing over to take a tight apex for the second. Now the start-finish straight, with the grandstands on the left, the pits on the right. Ahead of him is Bouchou's blue V12, and Bouchou, in fact, is getting very threatening to Muller. Bouchou in 6th place, Muller in 5th, but Muller under pressure now, with these 2 GT1 Porsches sandwiching the blue V12 Mercedes. He's tucked in the slipstream now. On go the brakes. He comes up the inside with the front of the Mercedes dancing under braking, and as he goes into that tight right-hander, the Mercedes goes ahead. Up to 5th place now, Bouchou, which means the Panos is the only non-Mercedes in the top 4. Red mirrors is Ludwig, yellow mirrors is Schneider. Those are the 2 silver cars in the lead. There's Bouchou now in 5th place, and the car looks very unsteady under braking, but it's going very, very quickly. And Bouchou is driving like a man possessed. That charge up the inside of Schneider was quite extraordinary. We're riding now in the Panos. This is the left-hand drive Panos, the big thundering V8 front engine car with Christophe Tauzo coming down through the gears. Ahead of him, he's got Marcel Tiemann in third place. The Paynos is in fourth, and the other blue Mercedes is looming now in the mirrors of the Paynos. And the battle for the lead goes on down the start-finish straight. Three cars absolutely together, and some bodywork has just come off Schneider's car, but Schneider has got ahead. Schneider takes the lead. Yellow mirrors past red mirrors. Bernd Schneider takes the lead from Klaus Ludwig. Off, meanwhile, goes Jörg Müller in the number 8 Porsche. But it was quite significant that a piece of bodywork came off the front of Schneider's car. We're seeing it again. One of the black carbon fibre winglets on the front of the nose of the car, which helps the downforce, and I wonder if that's going to give a handling problem to that car. Well, it doesn't seem to be worrying Bernd Schneider at all. Bernd Schneider in the lead. There is Klaus Ludwig in second place. Marcel Tiemann in the blue V12 car is in third place. The Paynos is still fourth. Now, this was Jörg Müller going off, watched by Yannick Dalmas. We ride with Dalmas as the GT1 Porsche goes completely awry off the circuit to the right. It's now back in the pits. They've got the front bodywork off, and they're working on Jörg Müller's Porsche, so that clearly is losing a lot of time. Meanwhile, on the circuit, look, this is the Paynos nudging the back of Marcel Tiemann's V12 Mercedes. We're riding now with Christophe Tauzo, who's doing a wonderful job with the Paynos in fourth place. He wants to make it third. That Mercedes is just ahead of him. Look at the power of the Paynos. The Paynos gets alongside, neatly boxes Marcel Tiemann in against a little GT2 Porsche as they lap it. And the Paynos moves ahead as they go down through the double right-hander with Tauzo working away at the steering wheel. The Paynos is third. And Bouchou spinning. Bouchou does a complete 720 degrees on the outside of the final corner, rejoins with two black lines of rubber on the circuit. But Bouchou is having a really eventful race. Christophe Bouchou, the car nodding now as he leaves his braking as late as possible. Look at it again. He got his left rear wheel offline onto the bumps on the outside of the corner, and the car just spun like a top. Meanwhile, what's happening in GT2? Well, there's the Viper of Olivier Beretta, already crowned the driver's champion in this category, and he is leading once again. One of the Vipers has gone off. There it is, Ni Amorim, the Portuguese, in the Hugh Chamberlain car, stuck in the gravel. And meanwhile, Schneider and Ludwig fight on at the front of the race. Schneider the leader, Ludwig in second place. A little gap before we get our third place man, which is, of course, still the Paynos. And Klaus Ludwig, in that second place car, has announced his retirement at the end of this season. This is his last race in Europe, only the two American races to come after that. And this is Beretta having a little bit of a moment. That's Olivier Beretta in a replay, but he hands on to the lead in GT2. Now we're in the Paynos. Tauzo at the wheel, following Ludwig, and Ludwig spinning. Ludwig loses it. Klaus Ludwig has lost the second place Mercedes. The Paynos goes by, and the fourth place Mercedes spins also. That's Marcel Tiemann, and bearing down on them is the battle for fifth. Dalmas in the Porsche, Bouchou in the other Mercedes. Into the pits now comes Schneider. It's all happening. What a fantastic motor race. Schneider comes in out of the lead. Schneider out of the car. His Australian co-driver Mark Webber gets in. There's the second place GT2 car, the Viper, with Justin Bell getting into that car now. And in comes Yannick Dalmas. Yannick Dalmas coming in for Alan McNish to take over the number 7 Porsche. McNish has got a big job to do in that car. And look at this, the Paynos. Frank Lagorce in that car now, attacking Mark Webber, going past Mark Webber. Bernd Maylander there in the blue Mercedes. Maylander is up there too, and the Paynos goes ahead, and Maylander going round the outside. Mark Webber completely pushed to the back of that little trio. Frank Lagorce absolutely charging in the Paynos. Maylander tucked in behind him, and Maylander's going to have a go. Look at the way the Mercedes nods under braking, leaves his braking so late for that downhill right-hander, and Frank Lagorce has to let him go. We ride now with Lagorce, and that Mercedes just out of reach. Somebody's on fire. It's a GT2 Porsche. That's the car of Vido Russler, and not only is the car on fire, but the road is on fire behind it. I think it's leaking oil, and the oil behind it is on fire. That's another GT2 Porsche going off in sympathy, Horst Feldmayer's car. Well, now, while all this is going on, the leader, there it is, the car with red mirrors, the Mercedes of Ricardo Zonta, because Zonta has taken over from Klaus Ludwig. And that number 2 Mercedes did an incredibly quick stop for that driver change. The car was refueled, they didn't change the tyres. Now, this Österreich ring, or the A1 ring as we have to call it these days, is very, very smooth indeed. It's very kind to tyres, and they decided that the number 2 Mercedes would not change tyres. The Bernd Schneider car with Mark Webber on board has changed cars. There's our GT2 leader, which is Pedro Lamy, the Portuguese, on board there. He's taken over from Olivier Beretta, as in comes the Zack-Speed Porsche of Michael Bartels. Bartels getting ready to get out, gets out of the car. Ready to get in is Max Angelelli. Mercedes therefore 1-2, and this car, the Paynos, has now dropped to 6th place. The problem for the Paynos, it's going tremendously well here, but it's thirsty. Frank Lagorce at the wheel now. It has to stop after 40 minutes of racing. The rest of the GT1 cars can keep going for almost an hour before they have to stop for fuel. And the additional stops has dropped the Paynos to 6th place, but both Frank Lagorce and Christophe Tinzo have done a fantastic job, and when they're on the circuit, driving really hard. Now Ricardo Zonta's back in the pit lane. That's the second routine stop for the leader. Meanwhile, we watch Armin Harner in the Zack-Speed Porsche. He is on the tail of Jean-Marc Gounon's blue V12 Mercedes. They've got the McLaren of Jeff Lees and Thomas Bacheur ahead of them to lap. The McLaren somewhat outclassed by these 1998 GT1 cars, even though in 1997 the McLarens were the class of the field. And flashing lights for the McLaren because Gounon doesn't want to be delayed. We've got Alan McNish in the pits and Yannick Dalmas ready to take over, but McNish is staying in the car. McNish stays aboard, they shut the door up, and McNish drives on. This is the Trunk Muller GT2 Porsche locking up its wheels, having a little bit of a moment, but we're with McNish now. McNish out of the pits and on his way. He's in the groove. They decided to leave him in the car, passing one of the GT2 Porsches there. It's been a frustrating year for Alan McNish in the FIA GT Championship. Of course, not a frustrating year as far as Le Mans was concerned. Alan McNish, a magnificent winner of the Le Mans 24-hour race. But in these FIA GT Championship races, the GT1 Porsche just hasn't had the speed of the Mercedes, and only occasionally has Alan McNish been able to get in among the Silver Arrows. And then, as we saw in Japan, as we saw at Oschersleben, it's ended in frustration. Here's Ricardo Zonta, the man that upset Alan McNish so much in Japan, and Zonta, like McNish, is doing a double stint. Zonta will drive the car to the end of the race, and they didn't change tyres even in the second stop for that number 2 Mercedes. In the pits now, the Armin Harner, Andreas Schelt Zack-Speed Porsche. Now look at this. This is Bernd Maylander coming out of the pits and clouting the barrier, clouting the Armco barrier in the pit lane and damaging that Person V12 Mercedes very severely. In fact, he's got to stop the car. He's out of the car. He's despairingly put that car, by a stupid piece of driving, out of the race. The mechanics can't believe it in the Person pit. He was coming out of the pits. He hit the barrier. Here's the Paynos once more, and that car is past its best. I think it is smoking badly. There's a lot of oil on the back of the car. You can see the smoke, and he's slowing. He's definitely slowing. The McLaren goes by, so does the Zack-Speed Porsche, so does Alan McNish in the Works Porsche. Meanwhile, in GT2, we have a new leader. The number 52 Viper has passed its Beretta Lamy teammate. This is Carl Wendlinger and our own Justin Bell, now leading GT2. And that's good news for Wendlinger. It's been a long haul for him since he had that dreadful accident in the Monaco Grand Prix in his Formula 1 days back in 1994. And Wendlinger has that car at the head of the GT2 race, and the Paynos is in the pits. The Paynos struggles into the pits. Look at the streak of oil on the road and oil all over the back of the car, and that has to be the end of the race for the Paynos. What a shame. Clearly serious mechanical maladies with that car, and Frank Lagorce is being helped out. But I have to say that both Lagorce and Tinzo have done a wonderful job with this car, normally driven, of course, by David Brabham and Eric Bernard. We've got the Angelelli Porsche in third place currently, but it's coming for a late stop for fuel, and as it goes out, that has promoted Alan McNish. There he is, the number 7 Porsche has finally profited from everybody else's problems, and Alan McNish is going to make it to the podium, I think. Alan McNish is now back up into third place with the car he's been sharing with Yannick Dalmas. The Porsche has simply not been competitive with the Mercedes here, but the consistency of McNish has moved him up the field. Here's the leader, Ricardo Zonta, 40 seconds clear of Bernd Schneider and Mark Webber on this, his final lap. It's going to be a great victory for Klaus Ludwig, who there he is watching from the pits. His final European race, remember, and Ricardo Zonta, and these two still have a chance of overhauling Bernd Schneider and Mark Webber before the end of the season. It's their last chance, in fact, in GT, because we know next year Zonta will be in Formula One, Klaus Ludwig will be in retirement, but now he comes through the final corner, does Ricardo Zonta. The checkered flag is waiting, and Ricardo Zonta wins here in Austria, turns on all his headlights to greet the Mercedes pit crew who are hanging over the barrier. It's another 1-2 for Mercedes, a great win for Zonta and Ludwig, second for Schneider and Webber, and Alan McNish was there again. McNish and Dalmas do finish third for Porsche.
The GT results look much the same every week. The two works CLKs top of the pile, McNish in third for Porsche, and an honourable mention for Jeff Lees and Thomas Boucher claiming a point in their McLaren. British success in GT2's reigning world champion Justin Bell making the most of a rare drive, finishing first with Carl Wendlinger ahead of teammates Beretta and Lamy. It's a four-way fight for the driver's title in GT1s. Only the Mercedes men are in contention, so no wonder they're having so much fun. Still to come in part 3, more single-seater action. Our second Formula 3000 race from Belgium's superb circuit at Spa.